We've got a Fox News alert. 7 o'clock here in New York City. Another historic moment in this 2024 election cycle, which has had plenty. President Joe Biden yesterday announced at 1:45 he's dropping out of the presidential race just 107 days before we all vote.
So the move comes amid all new reporting this morning suggesting Biden hesitated to drop out because his team didn't think Vice President Kamala Harris could handle taking on former President Trump.
But Biden giving Harris his full endorsement shortly after bowing out yesterday. Harris is already pulling in more than $49 million in the last 24 hours, according to the campaign.
News outlets all across the country reacting to the historic moment as we see the 50-plus year political career of Joe Biden come to an end. We have live team coverage this morning. We have Brooke Singman. She is here in New York with how the Democratic Party is responding to the news. But we begin with Jacqui Heinrich, live in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where the president is this morning. Good morning to you, Jacqui.
Good morning to you guys. For 23 days, the president maintained that his decision to stay in the race was final. But his oldest allies, like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, and Barack Obama, all made clear privately that they weren't satisfied with that decision. And Politico reports it was about to turn ugly. The Biden team was bracing for Pelosi to publicly release private polling showing that the president's race was doomed. Listen to this quote. Nancy made clear that they could do this the easy way or the hard way. She gave them 3 weeks of the easy way. It was about to be the hard way. Biden came to grips with his fate on Saturday afternoon, going over the data and the fundraising picture with his 2 closest aides, Steve Ricchetti and Mike Donnellan, socially distanced from the president, who is still fighting COVID. Through the night, they drafted his letter, and then Biden notified his vice president, chief of staff, and campaign manager in the afternoon, shortly before he sent that letter out publicly. He also called one of the last men standing in his corner, Jim Clyburn, whose support launched Biden to the presidency in 2020. Biden revealed his intention to him to back his vice president.
The president called me earlier today before he went public with the announcement. He sent in a second statement expressing his endorsement for Kamala Harris. Of course, he knew for a long time where I stood with this.
Where I stood with this, Clyburn says. He wanted the president to back his VP. Axios, though, reports the president hesitated getting out of the race because he doubted Kamala Harris could beat Trump. In a rare press conference, as he tried to recover from his disastrous debate performance, he explained why he abandoned his 2020 pledge to serve as a one-term president, a bridge to a future generation of leaders.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom to know how to deal with the Congress to get things done.
Harris will have to earn the nomination formally at the convention. She needs 1,986 delegates. As of about 10 o'clock last night, 531 had endorsed her. In the first 7 hours after Biden withdrew from the race, Act Blue announced it took in $46.7 million in small donations. They're now around the $50 million mark, so the base is newly energized. But it is clear, guys, that the president's decision to hold the first debate before the convention was one of the most consequential of his campaign, if not his 50-year career in public service, guys.
Jacqui, just in your estimation from covering him for 3 years, who made that decision to have that debate?
It's a very good question. If I had the answer, I would let you know. But there's a lot of discussion happening among Democrats right now about, whether it was really a good idea, if there was some lurking concern among his closest allies that maybe this decision to stay in the race might have to change. Other people have said that the president fully expected to just cream Donald Trump. Right. So not a lot of clarity on that decision, but it is being talked about in Democratic circles, guys.
Wow. And because, Jacqui, they had the first debate so early because the conventional wisdom and what we heard back then was if Joe Biden has a disastrous debate, there would be plenty of time for him to recover. And that was the thinking until yesterday at 1:45 in the afternoon. Are the campaign people you're speaking to, are they hacked off that it sounds like pretty much everybody in Biden world found out he was dropping out 1 minute before that tweet went out?
They were all very surprised. Everything I've heard is that this was because the president wanted to make the decision and the announcement in his own way. He was very unhappy with basically everyone in his corner not accepting what his decision was for 23 days, which was to remain in the race. He kept saying, I'm staying and that's it. And all of his biggest, closest allies, Democratic heavyweights like the former president, Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, Jeffries, all saying, well, we think that he'll arrive at the right decision. And that was the nice way of saying, you better change your mind.
Right.
The president wanted to hold on to something of his own, which was, his announcement to do it in his own way. But I think what's notable is that inner circle shrank to exclude some of his closest allies, like Anita Dunn, who is basically an Obama-era holdover and has been in his inner circle all the way through his presidency. She was the architect of a lot of his administration's strategy, and her connection with Obama's decision that, the party needed to move on from Biden. Who knows at what point she was sort of X'd out of that circle, but at the end, it came down to just the three people in that room, Rashedi, Donnellan, and the president.
All right. Our senior White House correspondent, Jacqui, at the beach.
Thanks, Jacqui.
Anita Dunn was the one who prepped him for the debate.
Her husband played Trump.
Yeah.
Bob Bauer.
I don't blame the president for being upset, though. Can you imagine having a problem for so long and everyone surrounding you and saying everything is okay?
Yeah,
going
fine,
out there, it's like me coming on set drunk every day. And you guys are saying,
we weren't telling
LJ,
anybody.
everything is fine. That's not and then I finally have a moment. I embarrass myself on TV, and then everybody goes, well, he has to leave.
Yeah.
I think it's so unfair for all of these people that have made all these public statements, and then they want to. They thought he was the best person to beat Donald Trump because they had beat him before.
Well, it's just another.
And now that he's chopped liver to them, now they just threw him to the wolves.
It's just another example of the lying and the lying and the lying and not being held accountable for it. And we saw that with the Russia ordeal. We saw that Russia. We saw that with the laptop. Hillary Clinton destroying her classified documents. And we've seen this over and over and over. They just lie to the American people, and they're working behind the scenes to try to finagle this and considering Joe Biden a puppet. They're just the masterminds behind the scenes running our country.
Behind the scenes right now, the question is, who does the Democratic establishment support? Because we've seen a bunch of state chairs already come out and endorse Kamala Harris. She certainly is the front runner right now. But you've got the people who are really running the party have not thrown their name out there for anybody. Hakeem, Chuck, Nancy, and Barack Obama.
But what about the money? She's the only one that can use the money.
Look, they raised $50 million yesterday. Right now at this point, they simply need. They're going to have a meeting of the DNC at 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon to figure out the rules. The only rule that is out there is to get on the list as a candidate to be nominated. You need 300 signatures from about 4,000 delegates to be a potential nominee. I think there are going to be Democrats who are going to challenge her for the simple reason, because if they just appoint her or anoint her, it's going to look like, the fix was in.
They already look terrible. And they got 23 Democratic governors, 32 senators, 153 congressmen, all Democrats already in her corner, including Roy Cooper's another person who could be running with her. Obviously, Shapiro could be running with her. Newsom, Pritzker, and Shapiro all endorsed her.
And they have to, because they're hoping.
Too.
Yeah, they're hoping if she becomes the nominee, then they could be the VP.
Whoever the nominee is, they get no vote from the Democratic voters, from the American people. I mean, this is so insane. They knew that he was messed up before they put him out there. They could have had a primary process. They could have let people vote on it. They could have had a debate. Now we have to rush all this. There's no real vetting that's going to happen. There's no debate between the Democratic Party.
No New Hampshire primary because he does bad in New Hampshire.
This was intentional?
I think it was definitely intentional. The Democratic vote, when you looked at all the polling before, most of the Democrats did not want Joe to win.
Yeah.
And they still said no primary, no debate. Robert F. Kennedy left the Democratic Party as a result of this.
Because he was kicked out, really.
So now you're going to let a bunch of party insiders, the delegates, decide who's the nominee on there?
Well,
that's crazy.
We've seen some ideas floated, and that would be essentially have a series of town halls where they debate the issues, where all comers do that.
What a joke.
Like I said, I think somebody else is going to challenge her because right now, if they just appoint her, it's going to look dirty.
Yeah.
So somebody's going to come forward and say, in the interest of an open process, I'm going to put my name out there, even though I've already endorsed.
Outside Joe Manchin? Joe Manchin's already said.
Absolutely. I think other Democrats, mainline Democrats we're talking about for vice president, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 could challenge her just to make it a contest.
But
she may run away with it. She's already got $50 million, but there will be challengers.
But people are going to be scared to challenge her in case she is the nominee. They want to be the VP.
Well, here's the thing. What if they have already endorsed her? Because a number of those people who are being talked about, they've already endorsed her. And they would just go, hey, listen, we want to make this seem open and fair, so I'm going to throw my name out there. Let people vote their conscience. I've already endorsed you.
Well, that's a theory, Steve, but the cat is out. The cat is out,
right.
and the horse is out of the barn, and the cow's out of the barn. So the cat, the horse, and there's nobody left in the barn.
Right.
And I'm trying to say there's no way you can pull the wool over our eyes again. Yeah. I'm like, we're like, hey, this looks good to me.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is fantastic. Like any other day, I got 25 storylines, none of which make sense.
Why aren't the American people upset about this? I mean, we don't even know
they might be. No one talks to them.
Running against.
Ainsley, no one knows that the American people are upset because no one talks to them. They don't give addresses. They don't give press conferences. They don't speak to the people.
I'm going to do a deuce on the loose in the next hour where I actually go out and talk to people
because we are 107 days away from the election. Right. We have no idea who is running on the Democratic ticket.
But here's what it comes down to, and this is why the party insiders, the
top
Democrats,
the piano man, Billy Joel.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much. It's not moving. Here's why the party insiders have not endorsed Kamala Harris yet. Because in the internal polling, Donald Trump still beats the living daylights out of her.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
But you couldn't skip her.
Some of the information that was presented to Joe Biden was she polls better than he does against Trump, but Trump still would run away if the election were held today.
Right.
Don't worry, it is not being held
Who
today.
wants to toss the brook?
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.